Hello, my friends. I hope everybody is doing well and staying warm. It got cold. Holy moly. We went from 90 degrees to, oh my goodness, excuse me, like 50 degrees. And yesterday, actually, you guys are going to have to, I apologize here. Yesterday, the boys and I, it was nice. It was warm, but it was kind of yucky, on and off, raining kind of thing. And I don't know if I told you guys this, I'd been promising the boys that we were going to build a fire pit in the backyard. And 2 Saturdays ago, well, I guess if you count yesterday, 3 Saturdays ago, I went to Lowe's. I could not even get a cart. Lowe's was so overflowed, I could not even get a cart. So I went back later in the day, could not get a cart. Went back last Saturday, could not get a cart. I couldn't get a flatbed cart to get the things that I needed. So, I didn't want to let down the boys, but I can't carry all that material out to my car. Lowe's was just overrun. And anyway, so yesterday I got my butt up early because I don't like letting the boys down. Got to Lowe's at 8, maybe a few minutes after 8. Got the stuff I needed, and I was back home, I think, by about 10:30. And last night we built a fire pit, and we cut out a big section of grass, 4 feet by 4 feet, leveled it with sand, leveled it with fine sand, pounded down and leveled up pavers, and then we built a nice brick, 3-foot round brick fire pit, and then of course it rained. So we had dinner, and we did our due diligence. We ordered dinner last night from a local shop, and then the sun came out at 8, so we kind of chillaxed, and then at about 8:45, we went outside and we went, yeah, all right. So we had our first fire, and we sat out there till about 10:30 and just kind of relaxed, and we chatted a bit, but there's something just soothing about sitting around a fire. But anyways, I think between that and something else, and I'm not sure what, I think I might have slept odd. My wrist has been just really well, and today my younger son and I, we did a couple miles of kayaking, and I just did something to my wrist. So, excuse me. So I'm icing it up here. And yes, you guys probably noticed, got the old haircut. And boy, my barber, she went short. Super lady. She hasn't made $1 in 10 weeks, and she got the green light to open. Anyways, we'll talk about that more later. I'm excited to be back with you guys reading. I hope by the end of the week, I really think that maybe by the end of this week we'll be done. And what the heck, why don't we get 10 more days of reading book 2? Let's start with book 2. Why not? All right. And I guess Stella's joining us tonight. Are you joining us for the book time? Yeah. Sit down and relax. All right. So I'm sorry if I'm sitting odd, but I'm going to ice up my wrist here as we read. So the day has grown dark. The day has grown dark. The warm night carries a soft wind, and the sky is scattered with intermittent flashes of light. clouds turning to brilliant colors of blue and red and green. Fireworks at first, fireworks at Sigu, to something else, louder and more menacing. The oohs, the ahs, turning to shrieks and screams. A chaos erupts, people are running, children are crying. Me standing in the middle of it all, watching without the benefit of being able to do anything to help. The soldiers and the beasts pour onto the scene from all directions, as I have seen it before. The contentious fall of bombs. The continuous fall of bombs. So loud that it hurts the ears. The reverberations felt in the pit, of my stomach. So deafening it makes my teeth ache. Then the Loric charged back with such intensity, with such courage, that it makes me proud to be among them, and to be one of them. Then I am gone, sweeping through the air at a rate that causes the world beneath to pass in a blur, so that I can't focus on any one thing. When I stop, I'm standing on the tarmac of the airfield. A silver airship is 15 feet away, and 40 or so people stand on the ramp leading up to its entrance. Two people have already entered, standing in the doorway with their eyes on the sky. A very young girl and a woman Henry's age. Then I see myself, 4 years old, crying, shoulders slumped. A much younger version of Henry just behind me. He too is watching the sky. On bended knee in front of me is my grandfather, gripping me by the shoulders. My grandfather stands I'm sorry. My grandmother is gripping my shoulder. My grandfather stands behind me, his face set hard, distracted, the lens of his glasses gathering the light from the sky. Come back to us, you hear? Come back to us, my grandmother says, finishing speaking. I wish I could have heard those words that came before them. Up until now, I have never remembered anything that was spoken to me that night. But now I have something. My 4-year-old self doesn't respond. My 4-year-old self is too scared. He doesn't understand what is happening, why there is urgency and fear in the eyes of everyone around him. My grandmother pulls me to her, and then she lets go. She stands and turns her back to keep me from seeing her cry. My 4-year-old self knows that she is crying, but he doesn't know why. Next is my grandfather, who is covered in sweat, grime, and blood. He has clearly been fighting, and his face is twisted as though he is straining, ready to fight more, ready to go and do what he can in the struggle to survive. His and the planet's. He drops to a knee, and my grandmother did before him. For the first time I look around, twisted heaps of metals, chunks of concrete, large holes in the ground where the bombs have fallen, scattered fires, scattered glass, dirt, splintered trees, all in the middle of a single airship, unharmed, and we are about to board it. We gotta go, somebody yells out. A man with dark hair and dark eyes. I don't know who he is. Henry looks at him and he nods. The children walk up the ramp, and my grandfather fixes me with a hard stare. He opens his mouth to speak, but before the words come out again, I am swept away, hurled up through the air, the world below again passing in a blur. I try to make it out, but I am moving too fast. The only discernible sights are the bombs continually falling, large displays of fire of all colors that sweep away through the night sky and the perpetual explosions that follow. Then I stop again. I am inside a large open building that I have never seen before. It is silent. The ceiling is domed. The floor is one great slab of concrete the size of a football field. There are no windows, but the sounds of bombs still penetrate, echoing off the walls around me. Standing in the very middle of the building, tall and proud, alone, is a white rocket that extends all the way to the apex of the building. Then a door slams open in the far corner. My head snaps around to it. Two men enter, frantic, talking quickly and loudly. All at once, a herd of animals rush in behind them, 15 give or take, continually changing shape, some flying, some running, on two legs, then on four. Bringing up the rear, a third man follows, and the door is shut. The man first reaches the spacecraft, opens a sort of hatch on the ship's bottom, and begins ushering the animals in. Go, 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 up and in, he yells. The animals go, all of them changing their shapes in order to do so. Then the last animal enters, and one of the men pulls himself in. The other two begin throwing bags and boxes to him. It takes them a good 10 minutes to get everything on board. Then all three scatter around the rocket, preparing it. The men are sweating, moving frantically until everything is ready. Just before the three of them climb inside the rocket, someone runs up with a bundle that looks like a swaddled child, though I can't see well enough to tell. They take whatever it is and they go inside. Then the door snaps shut behind them and it's sealed. Minutes pass. The bombs must be just outside the walls now. And then, from nowhere, an explosion occurs inside the building. And I see the beginnings of fire shoot from the bottom of the rocket. A fire that quickly grows, a fire that consumes everything inside the building, a fire that consumes even me. My eyes snap open. I am back home in Ohio, lying in bed. The room is dark, but I can see that I am not alone. A figure moves, a shadow throws across the bed. I tense myself to it, ready to snap my lights on, ready to hurl myself against the wall. You were talking, Henry says. In your sleep just now, you were talking. I turn on my lights. He is standing beside the bed, wearing pajamas, pants, and a white t-shirt. His hair is tousled. His eyes are red with sleep. What was I saying? You said up and in, up and in. What was happening? I was just on Lorien. In a dream? I don't think so. I was there just like before. What did you see? I scoot up in the bed so my back rests against the wall. The animals, I say. What animals? In the spaceship I saw take off, the old one, at the museum. In the rocket that left after hours. I watched animals being loaded into it. Not many, 15 maybe, with 3 other Loric. I don't think that they were guard. And something else, a bundle. It looked like a baby, but I couldn't tell. Why do you think they were, or why don't you think they were guard? They loaded the rocket with supplies, 50 or so boxes and duffel bags. They didn't use telekinesis. Into the rocket inside the museum? I think it was the museum. It was in a large dome building with nothing inside it but a rocket. I can only assume it was the museum. Henry nods. If they worked at the museum, then they would have been Sapan. Loading animals, I say? Animals that could change their shape? Chimera, Henry says. What? Chimera. Animals on Lorien that could change their shape. They're called chimera. Is that what Hadley was? I ask, remembering back to the vision I had a few weeks ago. The vision of playing in the yard of my elder's home when I was lifted in the air by a man wearing a silver and blue suit. You remember Hadley? I nod. I've seen him the way I've seen everything else. You're having the visions even when you're not training. Sometimes. How often? Henry, who cares about these visions? Why are they loading animals into a rocket? Why was a baby going with them? Or was it even a baby? Where did it go? What purpose could they possibly have had? Henry thinks about it a moment. He shifts the weight to his body to his right leg. Probably the same purpose we had. Think about it, John. How else could animals repopulate Lorien? They too would have to go somewhere to some sort of sanctuary. Everything was wiped out, not just the people, but also the animals and the plant life. Maybe the bundle was just another animal, a fragile one, or maybe a young one. Hi, can I help you? Well, where else could they go? What other sanctuary exists besides Earth? I think that they went to one of the space stations. A rocket with Loric fuel would have been able to make it that far. Maybe they thought the invasion would be short-lived. Short-lived. and they thought they could wait. They thought that they could wait it out. I'm sorry. They would have been able to live on the space station for as long as their supplies lasted. There are space stations close to Lorien? Yes, two of them. Well, there were two of them. I know for sure the larger of the two was destroyed at the same time as the invasion. We lost contact with it less than 2 minutes after the bomb fell. The first bombs fell. This makes it difficult for me to read, you know. Oh, why didn't you mention that before? When I first told you about the rocket, I assumed that it was empty, that it went up in the air as a decoy. And I think that the one of the space stations had been destroyed. Then the other would have been as well. Their trip, unfortunately, was probably done in vain, whatever their goal was. But what if they came back when their supplies ran out? Do you think they could have survived on Lorien? I ask in desperation. I already know the answer. I already know what Henry will say. But I ask anyways, in order to hold out on some sort of hope that we aren't alone in all of this. That maybe somewhere far away, there are others like us, waiting, monitoring the planet, so that they too might one day return, and we won't be alone when we go back. No, there is no water there now. You saw that for yourself. Nothing but a barren wasteland, and nothing can survive without water. Even cats, huh? I sigh and I scoot back into the bed. I drop my hands onto the pillow. What's the point of arguing? Henry is right, and I know it. I saw it for myself. If the globe he pulled from the chest are to be trusted, then Lorien is nothing more than a wasteland and a dump. The planet still lives on the surface. There is nothing. No water, no plants, no life. Nothing but dirt and rocks and rubble of the civilization that once existed. Are you enjoying this book? Yeah. Did you see anything else? Henry asks. I saw us on the day we left. All of us on the airship right before it took off. It was a sad day. I look and Henry crosses his arms and gazes out the window, lost in thought. I take a deep breath. Where was your family during it all? I ask. My lights have been off for a good 2 or 3 minutes, but I can see the whites of Henry's eyes staring back at me. Not with me, not on that day, he says. We are both silent for a time, and then Henry shifts his weight. Well, I better get back to bed, he says, bringing an end to the conversation. Get some sleep. After he leaves, I lie there thinking of the animals of the rocket, of Henry's family, and how I'm sure he never got the chance to say goodbye to them. I know I won't be able to go back to sleep. I never can when the images visit me. When I feel Henry's sadness, it must be as a thought constantly on my mind, as it would be for anyone who left under the same circumstances, leaving the only home you've ever known, all the while knowing you will never see the people you love again. I grab my cell phone and I text Sarah. I always text her when I can't sleep. Or she texts me if it's the other way around. Whoa! Then we talk for as long as it takes till someone gets tired. Come on. Time to get done. There you go. What? Hey, you. Sorry. Hey, you, I say. You can't sleep? No. What's the matter, she asks. She yawns on the other end of the line. Was, oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, Stella knocked me off here. I grabbed my phone. Oh, then we talk for sometimes because she's tired. She calls me 20 seconds later after I hit the send button. Hey, you, I answer. You can't sleep? No. What's the matter? She asks. She yawns on the other end of the line. Was just missing you is all. Been lying in bed and staring at the ceiling for an hour now. You're silly. You saw me like 6 hours ago. I wish you were still here, I say, and she moans. I can hear her smile through the darkness. I roll to my side and and hold the phone between my ear and the pillow. Well, I wish I was there too. We talk for about 20 minutes. The last half of the call is both of us just lying there and listening to the other breathe. I feel better having talked to Sarah, but I find it harder to fall back asleep. Chapter 24. The cat is shedding. And got a bunch of cat hair on me. For once, since we arrived in Ohio, things seem to slow for a time. School ends quietly for the winter break, and we have 11 days off. Sam and his mother spend most of it visiting his aunt in Illinois. Sarah stays home. We spend Christmas together. We kiss when the ball drops on midnight on New Year's Eve. Despite the snow and the cold, or maybe even retaliation against it, we go for long walks through the woods behind my house, holding hands, kissing, breathing in the chilly air beneath the low gray skies of winter. We spend more and more time together. Not a day passes through the whole break that we don't see each other at least once. We walk hand in hand beneath the umbrella of white from the snow, piled atop the tree branches overhead. She has her camera with her and occasionally stops to take pictures. Most of the snow on the ground lies undisturbed, aside from the tracks we have made on the walk out. We follow them back, and Bernie Kosar is in the lead, darting in and out of the brambles, chasing rabbits into small groves and thickets of thorny brush, chasing squirrels up trees. Sarah wears a pair of black earmuffs. Her cheeks and the tip of her nose are red with the cold, making her eyes look bluer, and I stare at her. What? She asks, smiling. Just admiring the view. She rolls her eyes at me, and for the most part, the woods are dense. Aside from the sporadic clearing, we continually stumble on. I am not sure how far in any one direction the woods extends, but in all of our walks, we have yet to reach their end. I bet it's beautiful here in the summer, Sarah says. We could probably picnic in the clearings. An ache forms in my chest. Summer is still 5 months away, and if Henry and I are here in May, we will have made it 7 months in Ohio. That is very nearly the longest we've ever stayed in one place. Yes, I agree. Sarah looks at me. What? And I look at her questioningly. What do you mean, what? That wasn't very convincing, she says. A mess of crows fly overhead, squawking noisily. I just wish it was summer now. Me too. I can't believe we have to go back to summer tomorrow, or go back to school tomorrow. Ugh, don't remind me. We enter another clearing, larger than the others, an almost perfect circle 100 feet in diameter. Sarah lets go of my hand, and she runs into the middle, and she drops into the snow laughing. She rolls on her back, and she begins making a snow angel. I drop beside her and do the same. The tips of our fingers just barely touch while we make the wings, and then we get up. It's like we are holding wings, she says. Is that possible, I ask? I mean, how would we fly if we were holding wings? Of course it's possible. Angels can do anything. Then she turns and she nuzzles into me. Her cold face against my neck makes me squirm away from her. Ah, your face is like ice. She laughs. Come and warm me up. I take her in my arms and I kiss her beneath the open sky. The trees are surrounding us. There are no sounds save the birds and the occasional peck of snow falling from all the branches. Two cold faces pressed tightly together. Bernie Kosar comes trotting up, out of breath, tongue dangling, tail wagging. He barks and he sits in the snow staring at us, his head cocked to the side. Bernie Kosar, were you off chasing rabbits? Sarah asks. He barks twice and he runs over and he jumps up on her. He barks again and pushes off. Then he looks up unexpectedly. She grabs a stick from the ground, shakes the snow off it, hurls it into the trees. He races after it and disappears from sight. He emerges from the trees 10 seconds later, but instead of returning to the clearing where he had exited it, he comes from the opposite side. Both Sarah and I both spin around and watch him. How'd he do that? She asks. Don't know, I say. He's a peculiar dog. Do you hear that, Bernie Kosar? He just called you peculiar. He drops the stick at her feet. We walk towards home holding hands. The day nearly dusk. Bernie Kosar trots beside us the whole way out. His head is on a swivel as though ushering us along, keeping us safe from what may or may not lurk in the outer dark beyond our line of sight. 5 newspapers are stacked on the kitchen table, and Henry is at his computer. The overhead light is on. Anything I ask out of habit? Nothing more. There hasn't been a promising story in months, which is a good thing, but I can't help but always hope for something every time I ask. Actually, yes, I think so. I perk up, then walk around to the table, and I look over Henry's shoulder at the computer screen. What? Was there an earthquake in Argentina yesterday evening? A 16-year-old girl... what? There was an earthquake in Argentina yesterday evening. A 16-year-old girl pulled an elderly man from a pile of rubble in a tiny town near the coast. Number 9? Well, I certainly think she's one of us. Whether she's number 9 or not remains to be seen. Why? There's nothing really extraordinary about pulling a man from rubble. Look, Henry says, then scrolls to the top of the article. There's a picture of a large slab of concrete, at least 4 feet thick, 8 feet long and wide. This is what she lifted to save him. It weighs 5 tons, and it looks like this, he says. And he scrolls back to the bottom of the page. He highlights the very last sentence. It reads, Sofia Garcia could not be found for comment. I read the sentence 3 times. She could not be found, I say. Exactly. She didn't decline to comment. She simply couldn't be found. How did they know her name? It's a small town, less than a third of the size of Paradise. Most everyone would know your name there. She left, didn't she? Henry nods. I think so. Probably before the paper was even published. That's the downfall of small towns. It's impossible to remain unnoticed. I sigh. Hard for the Magadorians to go unnoticed, too. Precisely. Sucks for her, I say, and then I stand up. Who knows what she must have left behind? Henry gives me a skeptical look, and he opens his mouth to say something, but then he thinks better of it, and he goes back to the computer. I return to my bedroom. I pack my bag with a fresh change of clothes and the books I'll need for the day. Back to school. I'm not looking forward to it, though it'll be nice to see Sam again, whom I haven't seen in nearly 2 weeks. Okay, I say, I'm off. Have a good day. Be safe out there. See you this afternoon. Bernie Kosar rushes out of the house ahead of me. He's a ball of energy this morning. I think he's come to look forward to our morning runs. The fact that we haven't done one in a week and a half has him chomping at a bit to get back to it. He keeps up with me for most of the run. Once we make it, I give him a good pet and scratch him behind the ears. All right, boy, go home now, I say. He turns and he starts trotting back to home. I take my time in the shower. By the time I finish, other students are beginning to arrive. I walk in the hall, I stop at my locker, then I go to Sam's. I slap him on the back. It startles him. Then he flashes a big toothy grin when he sees that it's me. I thought I was going to have to whip somebody's ass there for a minute, he says. Just me, my friend. How was Illinois? Ugh, he says, and rolls his eyes. My aunt made me drink tea and watch reruns of Little House on the Prairie nearly every day. It was, that sounds awful. It was, trust me, he says, and reaches into his bag. This is waiting in the mail when I got back. He hands me the latest issue of They Walk Among Us, and I begin flipping through it. There is nothing on us or the Magadorians, he says. Good, I say. They must fear us after you visited them. Yeah, right. Over Sam's shoulder, I see Sarah is coming our way. Mark James stops her in the middle of the hallway and hands her a few sheets of orange paper. Then she continues on her walk. Hi, gorgeous, I say when she reaches us. She stands on her tiptoes to kiss me. Her lips taste like strawberry lip balm. Hi, Sam, how are you? Good, how are you, he asks. He seems at ease with her now. Before the incident with Henry, which was a month and a half ago, being in Sarah's presence would have made him uncomfortable, and he wouldn't have been able to meet her eye to eye to know what to do with his hands. But now, he looks at her and he smiles, speaking with confidence. Good, she says. I'm supposed to give you both one of these. She hands us each one of the orange sheets that Mark just gave her. It's a party invitation for this upcoming Saturday night at his house. I'm invited, Sam asks. All three of us are. Do you want to go, I ask. Maybe we could give it a shot. I nod. You interested, Sam? He looks past Sarah and me. I turn to see what he's looking at, or rather who. At a locker across the hall is Emily, the girl who was on the hayride with us and who Sam has been pinning for ever since. When she walks past, she sees that Sam is watching her, and she smiles politely. Emily, I say to Sam. Emily what? Sam asks, looking back at me. I look at Sarah. I think Sam likes Emily Knapp. I do not, he says. I could ask her to come to the party with us, Sarah says. Do you think she would go, Sam asks. Sarah looks at me. Well, maybe I shouldn't invite her since Sam doesn't like her. Sam smiles. Okay, fine. I don't know. She kept asking why you never called after the hayride. She kind of likes you. This is true, I say. I've heard her say it. Why didn't you tell me, says Sam. You never asked. Sam looks down at the flyer. So it's this Saturday. Yes. He looks up at me. I say we go. I shrug. I'm in. What are we doing on time? We got 3 pages to finish the chapter. Let's finish it. Henry is waiting for me when the final bell rings. As always, Bernie Kosar is in the passenger seat. And when he sees me, his tail begins to wag 100 miles an hour. I jump into the truck. Henry pulls it into gear and he drives away. There is a follow-up article on the girl in Argentina, Henry says, and just a short article saying that she's disappeared. The mayor of the town is offering a modest reward for information on her whereabouts. It sounds like they believe that she's been kidnapped. Are you worried about the Magadorians having gotten to her first? If she's 9, like the note we found indicated, and the Magadorians were tracking her, it's a good thing that she vanished. And if she's been captured, the Magadorians can't kill her. They can't even hurt her. That gives us hope. The whole thing, aside from the news itself, is that I imagine every Magadorian on Earth has poured into Argentina. Speaking of which, Sam has the latest issue of They Walk Among Us. Was there anything in it? Nope. I don't think there would be. Your levitation tricks seem to affect them rather profoundly. When we arrive home, I change clothes and I meet Henry in the backyard for our daily training. Working while consumed with fire has gotten easier, and I don't get as flustered as I did on the first day. I can hold my breath longer, close to 4 minutes. I have more control over the objects I lift. I can lift more of them at the same time. Little by little, the look of worry that I saw on Henry's face during the first days has melted away. He nods more. He smiles more. On the days it goes really well, he gets a crazed look in his eyes, and then he raises his arms in the air and yells, "Yes!" as loud as he can, in a way that I am gaining confidence in my legacies. The rest have yet to come, but I don't think they're far off. And the major one, whatever it will be, the anticipation of it keeps me up most nights. I want to fight. I hunger for a Magadorian to saunter into the backyard so that I may finally seek revenge. It's an easy day, no fire, mostly just me lifting things and manipulating them while they are suspended in the air. The last 20 minutes pass with Henry throwing objects at me, sometimes just allowing them to fall on the ground, other times deflecting them on the way that emulates a boomerang so that they twist in the air and go blazing back towards Henry. At one point, a meat tenderizer flies back so fast that Henry dives face first into the snow to keep it from hitting him. I laugh, and Henry does not. Bernie Kosar lies on the ground and the whole time watching us, seeming to offer his encouragement. After we are done, I shower, I do my homework, and I sit at the kitchen table for dinner. So there's a party this Saturday that I'm going to go to. He looks at me and he stops chewing. Whose party? Mark James. Henry looks surprised. All that's over, I say before he can object. Well, you know best, I suppose. Just remember what's at stake. Okay. So we have finished 2 more chapters. We're on chapter 25. We're on page 299. So that might be, we might finish it by Friday. Maybe if we push, we might be able to finish this bad boy. How many pages? It's going to be close. Yeah, it'll be close. All right. Well, my friends, here we are. We're at the end of May, and we have not seen each other since. Do you want to come sit? We have not seen each other since March 13th. That was our last day together. And it's funny looking back. I really try to think. I think it was probably March 16th. The faculty had to go in and we had to get all stuff ready. And I think it was on that day that I don't want to say I knew, but I knew, right? Like I knew I guess I knew we weren't coming back, but I don't think I really had admitted it to myself. I kept holding out, but now, I can't believe that they're talking about September, And one of my parents in Scouts is the director of emergency services in Schoharie County, and I actually had to talk to him last night about tonight about some stuff not related to Scouts but to something else. And he said that right now in Schoharie County, they're not convinced that they're going to let the schools open in September. So I think one of the good things. Is we actually, I think it's September 9th that we start school. Yeah, I think it's September 9th. It's either the 8th or the 9th. So we actually kind of start school late this year, which I think is good because it pushes things back. It'll give us more time to prepare. And we talked last week, maybe Monday or Tuesday, that, Shenendehowa is talking about a plan. And I've now come to find that many schools are talking about the plan, that what they're thinking about doing is in the fall, starting school where the high school kids basically will start school from home. And then they're going to take all the little kiddies, the elementary school kiddies, and spread them out. So, for instance, what they might do is take Pinewood kids, take half of the kids and leave them in Pinewood, take the other half and put them in Brock. Take the Brock kids put half of them in Draper and half of the other kids in the high school. So we've really spread out all the kids as much as possible. Because you guys theoretically should be able to learn better from home. So, we'll see. I'm not sure. I am holding out for hope, just as I held out back then that we were actually going to be back in school at some point. But like I said, I think somehow I knew we weren't going to be back. But I really don't, and I don't know how I feel about the fall right now. I'm just not really sure. So, look who's back. So, anyway, so here we are, my friends, and I the news is today it's just a mess. And, our country is a mess. And I can't believe that in the middle of, again, I don't know that death-wise, it's not the worst pandemic that our country's ever seen in the number of deaths, but in the lethality of this, or not the lethality, in the lethalness of it to spread. So, it just amazes me how quickly this pandemic, how quickly this disease can spread to a large group of people or through a large group of people. And now they're saying that where some of these protests are happening, they know people are catching COVID. So what happened in Minneapolis was horrible. What's happened throughout our history in regards to racist actions are horrible. I don't know that this was a racial action, but it's certainly been perceived that way. And in Albany, and if you guys don't know this, the Schenectady, and I believe this is the county, has been placed in a state of emergency. And I believe that a curfew has been enacted. In Albany, the curfew was extended to tomorrow. So you are not allowed to be in public places from 7 p.m. tonight to 7 a.m. tomorrow in Albany. I'm not 100% sure what the time it is for Schenectady. But these protests and rallies that began in Albany yesterday very quickly turned violent. There were what do they call them? Molotov cocktails, right? Thrown at police officers, at mounted police officers on horseback, at City Hall. Dozens and dozens of stores were looted in Albany. There is video. It has nothing to do with race. It has to do with people smashing windows and stealing. And again, I don't see how this is going to make it any better. I don't see. I'm on their side, okay? I'm on the side of. No. Let me say this. I'm on the side of we need to get past race stuff. I almost said it. In our country, we are better than this, okay? At least that's how I feel. We are better than this, and we've been better than this. And we call ourselves the leader of the free world, but we lag behind other countries in this. We certainly do. We are the beacon of freedom and democracy. in the world. But, we do things as a society, not necessarily as a government, to take away freedom and hinder other people's freedom. We got to do better than this. Let's start solving real problems. Let's stop letting the color of our skin be a barrier between us. Let's let it be a glue. Let's say that, hey, we are all these different people. We are all these different nationalities. We are all these different religions. We are all these different races, and that's what makes us strong. And start solving real problems. We shouldn't be. We should have gotten past this stuff, I think, a long time ago. So Mayor Sheehan in Albany already said that I'm sorry. Extended the curfew. Police precincts in Albany were hit. City Hall was hit. The Board of Elections was hit with a firebomb, I guess. And I'm sorry. City Hall was hit with these Molotov cocktails. The windows were smashed at the Board of Elections. Police had to respond in those like armor trucks and riot gear. They had to use tear gas in Albany. 2 banks were smashed and windows were smashed, and people were trying to loot them on Pearl Street, which is where the Knickerbocker, the Times Union Center is there, Pearl Street. Colony Center. So there's video of people smashing the front doors at Colony Center and looting stores there, which I have to say is pretty bold. And all across the country, Charlotte, Chicago, Seattle, Oklahoma, Oklahoma City, Las Vegas, Atlanta, San Francisco, I know, DC, Atlanta. In Atlanta, I know they declared a state of emergency there. And I want to say like in a 20-mile area, I think they closed down shopping malls and all this other stuff. And it's crazy, it's just absolutely crazy what's happening. We got to do better. We got to do better than this. I just think it's wrong. I think it's right for people to protest, but I think it's wrong the way they're doing it. And again, I'm on the side of, we need to set aside our differences because of our races, and we need to be one people, solving problems, becoming a better country. So yeah, having a hard time getting it off my mind. And it was interesting because I talked to my dad earlier, and my dad lives in Albany. He's kind of stopped watching the news altogether, at least local news. And I called him this afternoon and I said, I just wanted to make sure you're okay, blah, 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 this and that. And he was like, what are you talking about? And I said, Dad, what's going on in the news? What are you talking about? I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Dad, turn on the flippin' news, right? Turn on the news. Oh, wow, look at this, right? Look at this. Look at what's happening. So anyway, Dad, I don't know. Well, I'm a little scattered about it. I didn't see a lot of news at all really being covered today. They had nothing on the 2 news agencies I looked at, their websites. They had nothing about the governor's press conference I don't even know if he held a press conference today. I honestly don't know. The one thing I did see about in Albany was that the number of deaths have now gone up by 24 cases. Why? Because coronavirus cases are not being deaths were not being accurately reported, and they aren't being accurately reported from the nursing homes. So the number has now jumped up quite a bit in Albany County, and I wonder what that's going to do to their next phase of reopening. So things around here are starting to open up a little bit more. I actually, that's one of the things I couldn't believe. I don't know if you guys saw this. Zoom Flume is opening up this summer. So Zoom Flume is hiring lifeguards. They're hiring people to work there this summer. And I kind of went, what? How is Zoom Flume opening up? I don't know. Is it the chlorine in the water? And I'm being serious. Is it because there's chlorine that kills the virus? So people can go? You got me. I really, really don't know. But so, well, SeaWorld's opening back up. We talked about that the other day. Is it July 15th? Disney's opening back up. So maybe Zoom Flume. My boys like to go there. And it's more of just it's goofy. You go on a super hot August day. You bounce around in the water. And it's just, it's just a good time. It is what it is. But there's always a ton of people there. Maybe they're going to limit the number of people. I don't know. But they got the big wave pool and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. And I thought, what about the Great Escape? I thought I heard that was not opening this year. I don't know. I'm going to have to look into that. Huh. Well, we'll see. All right, my friends. I know I'm a little scattered tonight. We're doing okay on time. All right. So on this day in history, in 1859, so 111 years ago, Big Ben in England, in London, rang for the first time. On this day, 1859. On this day, in 1889, the Johnstown flood, which Johnstown was, I believe it's about 60 miles outside of Pittsburgh, and the South Fork Dam failed and it collapsed. And in a relatively short period of time, 2,200 people died in that flood. One of my favorite authors, David McCullough, there's one of his books right there, 1776. And I'm reading another book by him on Teddy Roosevelt. One of his first books was on the Johnstown flood. On this day in 1921, believe it or not, race riots in Tulsa, Oklahoma. 85 people were killed. So, my friends, that's almost 100 years ago. And we still have this problem, right? We haven't solved this race problem. And it's just been too long. Excuse me. So, on this day, in 1942, the Lend-Lease Act begins. So we, at the start of World War II, we don't want to get involved in the war. So we begin two different programs to help the Allies, to help France, to help England, and to help the Soviet Union. We will lend you this equipment and these things if you lease us land, if you lease us territory. And I wish you guys could see this. The cat, my son left a glass. No. Oh my God. Sorry, hold on. Get out of there. So my son was out here reading earlier and left a glass of water, and my cat had her entire head in that glass of water when she has right in the kitchen a fancy little, it's a little flower fountain that it's constantly circulating and filtering fresh water for her. But no, let me jam my head into a glass and drink the water out of that. And then when she pulled her head out, and that's when I got up, she like looked at the glass and she whacked it a little bit and then started sliding off the end table. So anyway, I'm back. Lend-Lease Act. So we are not involved in World War II, but World War II starts September 1st, 1939 with the invasion of Poland. And the Soviets, the French, the English are in the war they're fighting the war for about 2 years before we join. And, once we join the war, or prior to us joining the war, this is how we're helping out with the Lend-Lease Act and the cash carry program. On this day in 1957, so we talked about, or we learned about the Red Scare after World War II. There is the oh geez, where did I write it? Here it is. There is the in the Senate a committee, the hearings on Un-American Activities Committee, and it is led by Senator Joe McCarthy, and he pulls in people that he believes are communists, and one of those people that is pulled in is Arthur Miller, the playwright, Death of a Salesman, who wins a Tony for The Death of the Salesman, and then he writes The Crucible, which calls out people in the government because they are conducting the witch hunts. Maybe you guys read that play. I know Miss Spore, I think, still reads it. But Arthur Miller after that is blacklisted and, never has another play produced in, not like he had produced in America. On this day in 1962, so after World War II, the surrender of Germany, even before the war is over, a lot of Nazis flee Germany, they flee Europe. And what happens after World War II, the state of Israel is established, and they start to hunt down these Nazis that they know have kind of escaped all over the world. And one of those gentlemen goes by the name of Adolf Eichmann. And he worked with Heinrich. Now I've forgotten his last name. General Heinrich Reinhardt, maybe? I'm sorry, I'm forgetting his name. But he is the general who is in charge of coming up with the final solution. How are we going to get rid of all of these Jews that are in the conquered territories, right? The Germans want to dispose of the Jews. So it's he that really heads up this program. And it's Adolf Eichmann who is kind of his little toady assistant that is helping out. And really, too, he's put on trial and then he's hanged in Israel for war crimes against the Jewish people of the world. And then on this day in 1962, Governor George Wallace refuses an injunction to integrate the University of Alabama. We talked about that and the different issues with him in our last unit. If you're familiar with Forrest Gump, the movie Forrest Gump, when Forrest goes to Alabama University and he's on the football team, right? He's at school one day and there's all these people standing around, and one of the players on the team asks him, or he asks the guy, he says, "Hey, what the heck's going on?" And he says, "Oh, well, these black kids want to go to school." And, Forrest is kind of looking, why would they want to go to school here or whatever? And, or no, he says, they do, right? And he kind of gives this weird look. And then the guy and the girl walk up, the girl drops her books. Forrest picks them up and brings it over and gives it to her. And then he kind of does this weird wave to the cameras, and that's that. So, yeah, it's one of the interesting things about that movie, and I've always wanted to read the book because apparently the book has even more of those types of things where, he meets President Kennedy, he meets President Lyndon Johnson, he runs across America, he does all these different things. He comes up with the catchphrase, shit happens, right? And the one guy makes bumper stickers and stuff. They're really cool movie, and it actually does an incredible job of teaching us about the history of our country, starting, right at the beginning of the Civil Rights Movement, and moving forward through the Vietnam War. Really, really cool book, cool story. So anyway, my friends, we're doing okay on time. I don't want to ramble too much. We already rambled quite a bit. Again, I think our country needs to solve problems and solve these race problems. But I do think that right now we've got to remember that we are being hit by this horrible pandemic. And I know everybody's sick of that word, pandemic, but it's true. We've got to be able to come to the table and meet and talk and start to figure this stuff out for once and for all and put it behind us. Could you imagine if we didn't have all this stuff in the news all the time? If we didn't have to worry about this? I think our high school has race problems in it, and we need to try to find a way to solve those problems and put it behind us. We really do. But anyway, I'm going to say goodnight. I hope that tomorrow there's better news to our news. Kind of got better, and then it kind of got even worse than I think it was. But we'll dig up some good stuff tomorrow. And, again, we're getting there, guys. I hope everybody out there is safe, and I hope that you are not in the middle of either having a sick member in your family, or, you are in some way being affected by, the racial things that are happening in our country, these racial riots, these racial clashes. And I truly hope that we find a way to get this stuff solved and behind us so we can start to just make ourselves better in other ways. So keep running the marathon. Don't sprint. Be good. Get your work done. 2.5 weeks. We're done. We're almost there, guys. So keep running the marathon, and I'll see you tomorrow night. Have a good night.